Right now, in 2026, there is a brand new VA payment moving through Congress worth $833 a month, and almost no veteran has heard of it yet. That is right around $10,000 a year, a brand new check stacked on top of the disability compensation a veteran already receives, and it is sitting inside a bill that most people in the veteran community do not even know exists. By the time we are done here, you are going to know exactly what this new payment is, who is in line to get it, where it stands in Congress right now, the one honest catch nobody else is telling you about, and the moves you should make today so that if this becomes law, you are first in line and not the veteran who finds out too late. And stay with me whether you are rated at 10% or 100%, whether you served 40 years ago or got out last year, and whether you think this particular payment applies to you or not, because this is not just one check for one small group. This is the single biggest veterans benefits package Congress has put on the table in years, and what is bundled inside it is going to touch what lands in your mailbox, what your family is entitled to, and what veterans all across this country are about to be able to claim. Even if the $833 itself is not aimed at you, there is something in this bill for you, and I am going to walk you through all of it. I am Frank Sutherland, and I want to be straight with you about who I am. I am a veteran. I am not a claims examiner. I am not an attorney, and I am not somebody on the inside at the VA. I am just a guy who served and who actually reads these bills line by line, the fine print, and the parts they tend to bury so that you do not have to take a press release or a headline at face value. So let me show you what Congress is actually doing here and what it really means for you and the people you love. Here's the heart of it. There is a bill moving through Congress right now called the Take Care of America's Veterans Act. And this is not one small piece of legislation. It is a massive package, more than 60 separate bills bundled together into one. And it is one of the largest expansions of veterans benefits that has been proposed in a very long time. Tucked inside that package is the piece I want you to understand first. It would create a brand new monthly payment, a supplemental allowance of $833.33 every single month, which works out to right around $10,000 a year for the veterans who are living with the most serious, most life-altering, service-connected injuries and illnesses. The men and women who gave the most and who carry the heaviest burden every single day. And the key word here is supplemental. This would be a new check added on top of the disability compensation they already receive, not a swap, not a replacement, not the government taking from one pocket to fill another. New money on top of what is already owed. Now I can already hear the question because it is the right one to ask. Who exactly qualifies for this? And I am going to give you the honest answer rather than the hyped up one. The payment is aimed at the most catastrophically injured veterans. The ones living with the most severe service-connected conditions, the kind that change every hour of your day and often the lives of the family caring for you. The bill itself spells out the exact criteria for who meets that bar, and I am not going to stand here and pretend I can read you a perfect legal checklist that has not been finalized, because that is exactly the kind of fabrication that I refuse to do on this channel. But here is what matters for you, and I will come back to it at the end because it is the single most important takeaway in this whole video. Whether or not a payment like this ever reaches your mailbox depends almost entirely on one thing, and it is the same thing that decides nearly every dollar the VA does or does not send you. It is whether your conditions are fully documented and properly service-connected in your file. Hold on to that because we are going to come back to it. But before we get there, I promised you this bill has something in it for every veteran watching, and I meant it. So let me widen the lens because the $833 payment is just the headline. This same package also includes an increase for the survivors, specifically a 1.5% increase phased in over 2 years for the surviving spouses and the eligible family members of service members who were killed in the line of duty or who later died from their service-connected injuries. Now, 1.5% might not sound like a headline number next to a $10,000 check, but if you are a surviving spouse living on a fixed survivor benefit, every percent matters, and an increase that is written into law is an increase that keeps coming month after month, year after year. That is real money for the families who already paid the highest price any family can pay. Let me put a face on that one too, because survivors are the people this system forgets the fastest. Picture a widow. I will call her Eleanor. Her husband served, came home carrying the injuries that eventually took him, and when he passed, Eleanor was left with a survivor benefit that has to cover a whole life on its own. She is not asking for much. She is just trying to keep the house, keep the lights on, and keep her dignity on a check that has not kept up with the cost of a loaf of bread in years. For Eleanor, an increase written into law is not a political talking point. It is groceries. It is the prescription she stops skipping. And here is the part that should bother every one of us, because Eleanor will only ever see that increase if her dependency status and her records are properly squared away with the VA. The families who fall through the cracks are almost never the ones who were not entitled. They are the ones whose paperwork was a little out of date when it mattered most. So when I tell you later to get your records in order, I am talking about Eleanor too, and maybe about your own spouse one day. And let me speak directly to the veteran who is about to tune out right now, the one thinking, Frank, this is nice, but I am not catastrophically injured and I am not a survivor, so none of this is for me. I want you to stay with me, because that thinking is exactly how veterans leave money on the table. This bill is more than 60 pieces of legislation. The two parts I have named so far are just the headlines. A package this size moves the whole landscape of what the VA pays and how it pays it, and when that landscape shifts, the veterans who already have a complete, accurate, up-to-date file are the ones who get carried forward with it automatically, while the veterans with gaps in their record sit there wondering why their neighbor got something they did not. You do not get to know in advance which line in a 60-bill package ends up mattering for your exact situation. What you can control is whether your file is ready when one of them does. That is why this is for you, even the parts that are not about you. And that is the thing I want you to understand about a package this size. When Congress bundles more than 60 bills together and calls it the Take Care of America's Veterans Act, it is touching benefit after benefit after benefit. Some of it is brand new money like that supplemental allowance. Some of it is raising what already exists like the survivor increase. Some of it is fixing gaps and cleaning up rules that have shortchanged veterans for years. This is the kind of legislation where the veteran who pays attention comes out ahead, and the veteran who tunes it all out as just more political noise is the one who misses out on something they were entitled to. So let me tell you why this is happening now, and then I am going to tell you the one honest catch, because there is always a catch, and you deserve to hear it from somebody who will actually say it out loud. Let me put a face on why this matters, because it is easy to let numbers wash over you. Picture a veteran, I will call him Daniel. Daniel came home from his service with injuries so severe that his whole life rearranged itself around them, and so did his wife's. She is not just his spouse anymore, she is his caregiver, around the clock, and somewhere in there she gave up her own job and her own income to do it. Daniel has his disability rating, and thank God for it. But anybody who has lived this life knows that a rating does not cover the real cost of the most catastrophic injuries, the constant care, the things that wear a family down to the bone year after year. For a household like Daniel's, a new payment of around $10,000 a year is not a luxury, and it is not a windfall. It is breathing room. It is the difference between just barely holding on and actually being able to manage. That is who this part of the bill is built for, and that is why it is worth understanding exactly where it stands and exactly what you would need to have in place to receive it. So here is where it stands, honestly. This bill is moving through Congress, but it is not law yet. And I am never going to tell you that something is a done deal when it is not. It is being championed by Congressman Mike Bost, and it has real momentum behind it. But a bill this large, this expensive, with this many moving parts has to clear a lot of hurdles before anyone sees a dollar. In fact, parts of it have already been revised as it works its way through. So this is the moment where it is being shaped, debated, scaled, and decided. Which means this is exactly the wrong moment to tune out and exactly the right moment to get your own house in order so that you are ready the day it lands instead of scrambling after the fact. Now, the honest catch, because I would not be doing my job if I left this part out. A package this big, with brand new payments and increases inside it, has to be paid for somehow. And the way this bill proposes to pay for a chunk of it is by raising a fee on the back end. Specifically, it would increase the funding fee on certain VA home loans, the fee tied to refinancing a VA loan. Now, here is the part you need to hear clearly so nobody panics. Under the version that has been moving forward, that fee increase is aimed at refinance loans, The purchase loan fees for buying a home were left alone, and most importantly, disabled veterans who receive compensation remain exempt from that funding fee, the same way they are exempt today. So the people this new payment is built to help are, by and large, not the people being asked to foot the bill for it. But I am telling you it is in there because you are going to hear other people talk about the good news of this bill without ever mentioning how it gets paid for, and you should always, always know both halves of the story. And let me be concrete about that fee for a second, because vague talk about a funding fee does not mean much until you see it in dollars. The funding fee on a VA refinance is a one-time charge figured as a percentage of your loan, and right now on a refinance it is a fraction of a percent. The proposal would push it up to nearly 3 times what it is today. On a refinance of a couple $100,000, that is the difference between a fee of around $1,000 and a fee several $1,000s higher, paid up front or rolled into the loan. So if you are a veteran who is not disability exempt and you have been sitting on the fence about refinancing your VA loan, that is a real number and a real reason to understand the timing. But if you are a disabled veteran receiving compensation, I want to say it one more time plainly so you can stop worrying about it. As the bill is written, you stay exempt, the same as you are today. There are even lawmakers who have pushed back hard on that funding approach, warning it could hurt future veterans, and that fight over how to pay for it is part of why this bill is still being negotiated rather than signed. So let me get to the part that actually matters for you, the moves, because being aware of a bill does nothing if you are not positioned to benefit from it. And this is the same lesson at the center of almost everything I talk about on this channel. The first move, and the most important one by far, is to make sure every single one of your service-connected conditions is documented and rated properly right now before any of this becomes law. I told you at the start that whether a payment like this ever reaches you comes down to one thing: your file. A benefit aimed at the most severely injured veterans is only ever going to reach the veterans whose injuries are actually on the books, fully documented, correctly service-connected, and rated at the level that reflects how bad things really are. If you have conditions that have gotten worse since you were last rated, conditions you never filed for, or secondary conditions that grew out of your service-connected ones, those gaps in your file are gaps that can lock you out of a benefit you would otherwise qualify for. So the move is to close those gaps now. Get the current medical evidence, file for the conditions you never claimed. Pursue the increase if your situation has genuinely worsened. Do not wait until a new payment is signed into law to discover that your file does not reflect your reality, because by then you are starting from behind. And let me show you exactly how those gaps happen, because it is almost never that a veteran was lazy. Picture a guy who got out with a bad back, service-connected, rated, all squared away years ago. What he did not file for, because nobody told him he could, is everything that bad back has caused since. The nerve pain running down his leg, the depression that crept in from living with chronic pain every single day, the sleep that fell apart because he cannot lie down without hurting. Every one of those can be a secondary condition, service connected through the back, that is already on his record, and every one of them could raise his combined rating, but none of it is in his file because he only ever claimed the one thing. So on paper, the VA sees a guy with a moderate back problem, when the reality is a man whose whole health unraveled from a single service injury. The day a benefit comes along that looks at how severe a veteran's overall situation is, the paper version is the version that counts, not the reality. Closing that gap, claiming the conditions that flowed from the ones you already have, is how you make the paper finally match the truth. The second move protects your timing, and it is one most veterans never use. If you have been meaning to file for a condition or to file for an increase, but you have not gathered all your evidence yet, you do not have to wait and lose time. You can submit what is called an intent to file. It is a simple notice to the VA that you intend to make a claim, and it locks in your effective date right now, today, while it gives you up to a full year to pull everything together and submit the complete claim. That matters here because when benefits expand, effective dates and timing decide who gets back pay and who does not. Lock your date in, then take the time to build the claim right. The third move is to keep your survivors protected too, because this bill remembered them and you should as well. If you have a spouse or dependents, make sure your records, your dependency status, and your beneficiary information are current and correct with the VA. The survivor increase in this bill only ever reaches families whose paperwork is actually in order. The worst time for a family to discover a gap in their records is in the middle of the hardest moment of their lives. Fix it now while it is easy. Now, let me take a quick second here because so many of you have asked me to put all of these moves into one place. How to make sure every condition you have is documented and rated, how to file for the secondary conditions most veterans never claim, how to pursue and increase the right way, how to lock in your effective date, how to protect the benefits your family is entitled to, and how to make sure you are positioned for exactly this kind of expansion when it comes. So I put it together in plain English in something I call the Veterans Benefits Playbook. It walks through the moves that make sure you are getting every dollar the VA already owes you, and that you are ready the moment a new benefit like this one lands, and the link is in the description below if you want it. But whether you pick it up or not, I want you to use what is in this video, because the veteran who keeps their file current and complete is the veteran who actually benefits when Congress finally does something right. Because here's the bottom line. There is a new payment of $833 a month moving through Congress in 2026, around $10,000 a year, built for the veterans who carry the heaviest burden, and alongside it an increase for the survivors who gave everything. It is not law yet, and it has to be paid for, and you now know both of those things honestly, which is more than most people will ever tell you. But the veterans and the families who come out ahead when a bill like this finally passes are never the ones who waited around hoping. They are the ones whose conditions were documented, whose claims were complete, whose effective dates were locked in, and whose family records were in order the day the law changed. Being ready is the whole game. The benefit comes to the prepared. And I have to say this part every time because it matters. I am not your claims advocate, and nothing I just told you replaces sitting down with an accredited veteran service officer who can look at your specific file. A good VSO from a group like the VFW, the DAV, or the American Legion will help you build the claim and file for the increase for free, and you should never pay a company a percentage of your back pay for something you can get help with at no cost. So talk to a VSO about your own situation and keep an eye on this bill because it is still being decided. But get your file right now today so that whatever Congress passes, you are ready for it. I am Frank Sutherland. I will see you on the next one.